Good evening. It is Thursday, 9th of May, and it's sunny. I think this is probably the first Facebook Live we've done when it's been warm and sunny outside.
It would be nicer to be outside.
Yeah, it's a bit hot inside. But good evening, everybody. We'll give it a couple of minutes, like we always do, just to allow people to jump on. This is the regular, every 3 weeks, Facebook Live that I've been doing since January in this kind of format. So, I mean, I don't know what number we're on, 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah, I think this is the fifth. I couldn't believe that it's been going since January. It was 2 minutes.
So, so those who tune in every 3 weeks, you'll know exactly the format. For those who don't, who have stumbled upon it, welcome to the best show on Facebook on a third Thursday at 7 p.m. My name is Antony Higginbotham. I am your Member of Parliament for Burnley and Padiham and all the brilliant villages that make up our area, and then I'm with Jamie McGowan, or Councillor Jamie McGowan, who's a Burnley Borough Councillor, and but in this scenario he's not sitting there as a Burnley Borough Councillor. Jamie, you're sitting there as interviewer in chief, inquisitor in chief. I think the title is. That we're going to
you always get a lot of questions for these, whether it's on the live stream or even beforehand, and it's the exact same today, Anthony. So I expect a lot of questions.
Always easier to have Jamie watching the Facebook comments to ask me questions so that I can properly engage and give thoughtful and reasoned answers. We'll see what the comments come back and I'll give you the answers. But that's why we got the kind of double act. Jamie gets to read the comment and holds me to account and make sure I actually answer the question and can probe a little bit if he thinks that I'm not answering the question that was asked, which is easy done actually. When you're answering lots of questions, it is pretty easy to feel like you've answered it, but you might not have done, and Jamie just keeps an eye on. So, I mean, we'll give it a couple of moments before we delve into the questions.
Yep. One of the things, we've literally just had local elections last week. I know you just mentioned about me being a councillor. I wasn't up for election this time, but what will you take on the local elections? We had the borough and we also had the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, hopefully everyone who's watching this voted in the local elections. It was a mixed bag for us. I mean, locally in Burnley, I think we did pretty well. You know, we ended the day with the same number of councillors that we started with. You know, we got 2 brilliant councillors re-elected. When I say we, I mean the Conservatives, because I think everyone knows what colour my rosette is. So we got 2 brilliant councillors re-elected. We also got Ivor Emo in Worsthorne and Cliviger re-elected, but it wasn't re-elected because he was up. He lost out narrowly by about 11 votes, I think it was, 2 years ago. And so he decided to stand in this year and won in Worsthorne and Cliviger, which was brilliant, right? Because he's one of the hardest working people. So from a Burnley Borough Council perspective, we did okay, right? We held our own, and that wasn't the case across all of the country, as I think it's fair for most people to see. But it wasn't all happy. You know, I've got to admit, one of my close friends is Andrew Snowden, who was Lancashire's Police and Crime Commissioner, and Andrew lost out this time. And you know, he's done so much to help us in Burnley and Padiham with Operation Centurion in ASB hotspots. Op Warrior, Op Grit, you know, some of these are big operations to target violent crime, to target drug dealing, to target antisocial behaviour. He's been at the forefront of that. He's recruited more police officers than the government target was for our area. So instead of being up about 590, which was where we would get to, we got above that and we got to more than 600. And that's because of Andrew's dedication to the job. And so I was disappointed that we didn't manage to get him over the line. That was a Lancashire-wide election, so much harder. And but you know, we'll see. My job is to work with everyone. It doesn't really matter who controls Burnley Borough Council or Lancashire County Council or the Police and Crime Commissioner. My job as the Member of Parliament is to work with anybody and everybody I need to deliver the best for our area. And so I'm looking forward to working with the new Police and Crime Commissioner to, you know, make sure we continue to make progress on the things. But, you know, he can expect me to hold him to account if we're not seeing the same things that we've seen before, that focus on antisocial behaviour, hotspot policing in the parts of the borough that we really need it. We know we've got some problems with in the town centre, that continues to be a bit of a problem. E-bikes continue to be a problem. We spoke about that last time. I'd had some good conversation with Andrew about some of the stuff we could do, and I look forward to picking them back up and making sure that we continue to make progress and hold the Police and Crime Commissioner to account for what their job is.
Well, one of the things that got brought up in the campaign, Anthony, and I would like your input on this, was about Burnley Police Station. And there was a lot of talk about the current Police and Crime Commissioner having plans to close Burnley Police Station. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say when Andrew Snowden took over back in 2021, Lancashire Constabulary's finances were not in the best shape. I think we all recognise what Labour tend to do when they take control of anything is blow the finances apart. And as a result, some big savings had to be made by Lancashire Police, and Andrew found what some of those plans were, and that included closing a number of police stations, Burnley included. Anyone who's been to Accrington can see what happens when you don't have a police station. They've got essentially a shop front in Arndale, in the equivalent of Charter Walk. And I don't think that's, for a borough of Burnley size, that's not realistic. So Andrew shelved it. That was brilliant. Said it wasn't going to happen. And now, one of my big priorities for the new Police and Crime Commission is making sure those plans don't get resurrected. Right? The finances of Lancashire Constabulary are now in a very good shape. Every year we've managed to increase the constabulary's budget. The government has fully funded the 20,000 extra police officers, the 612 that we've got. Andrew made some really good progress on that, so there's no reason to see that plan resurrected. But I'll be looking for a commitment from the Police and Crime Commissioner that Burnley Police Station is safe, because I think that's what residents want to see.
Yeah, 100%. Stuart says, evening Anthony.
Sure.
And Mel wants you to explain, so this is more about Parliament here. Mel actually wants you to explain how the whips work. When it's used, why it's used. I think there's a lot of misconception about this, so it'd be interesting to hear.
I mean, there's definitely misconception about this. And anyone who has been on my coach trip to Parliament, where 40 residents come down on a coach that me and my team organise, will have had all this, because we stand in members' lobby just outside the government whips and the opposition whips doors, and I explain a little bit about the whips and how they work and what they do. And you're right, there is massive misunderstanding out there about the whips. I think it probably comes from the original British House of Cards series. The whips are these shady characters. And actually, almost, it couldn't be further from the truth. Most of the whip's job is pastoral.
Even the term whip, as in do as you're told.
It's a pastoral job. Of course, they've got a remit to get government business through the House of Commons. But how they do that is very different to the perception. So the perception is that as I'm walking towards the voting lobby, whips will physically grab you and say, go into this lobby. And that never works. That's just not the way it's happened. It's never happened in my whole time of being there. What does happen is, at the start of a week, my whip, so every MP has a whip, and every whip has 12, 15 MPs. My whip will text me and say, here's the business for the forthcoming week in Parliament, so here's the things we're going to be debating and voting on. Can you let me know what your views are? And basically I go through it and I'll say, right, okay, well, I'm happy with this and this, but I might have concerns on this, or I need to speak to a minister on this. And they do that every week, but you also know months in advance what the business is going to be. And so the whip is kind of your conduit in. So if I look at a piece of legislation and go, look, actually, I think this needs to be tweaked, then rather than waiting until it gets to the floor of the House of Commons and standing up and giving a speech and voting against the government when you know the government's got a 60-seat majority and you're probably going to lose it, I speak to the whips. They'll normally put you in touch with the government minister or the cabinet member or whoever it is, and you talk through it and you see if there is a way of either addressing your concerns. Sometimes that's by an amendment. So if anyone watches Parliament, you'll see tons of government amendments to legislation. Most of the time that's because the government has listened to MPs in private and found a solution. So that's what the whips do. They're that conduit between backbench members of Parliament and government departments to make sure government business progresses through. But most of that is about dealing with concerns, issues, questions at the start. And then, as I said, there is a pastoral role as well, because of the nature of the job. Sometimes you just want to talk to someone and say, look, this has happened, or this has happened in my constituency. Do you know of any other colleagues who have had the same? And they kind of act as that intermediary.
Cheers for that, Anthony. I hope that answers Mel's question. I'm just gonna jump past Roger's question. We'll come back to this, but there's a number of people that have messaged previously about it, and
Okay.
John has just messaged here. Basically, 2 points to it. It's the SSB law.
Yeah.
One, have you got an update? Because that's what people have been saying. What's the update? And then second is John's asking about the 14th of May. Constituents are going down to Parliament. So just a bit of an update on SSB law, really, if you can.
So, John, drop me a message if you've not received the latest pack. So, probably just after or just before the last Facebook Live, I mentioned that everyone who contacted me about SSB Law, who was a Burnley resident, was going to get a full pack from me. That included all the letters that I've had back from various government agencies and regulators, government departments, etc. So that all went out, and I included in that a checklist. So I'm currently waiting for all those checklists to come back, and that's just helping me build a more detailed picture of everyone's circumstances for when I'm engaging with government ministers and departments on the topic. I spoke to Minister Rowley, who is a minister in the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Community. I spoke to him about this. What day are we on? Thursday, Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yes, it was. Yesterday I spoke to her. The days all blur sometimes. But I spoke to Mr. Rowley yesterday in the division lobby. We were talking about it. Basically what's having to happen is, and I think I explained this last time, multiple government departments are having to come together. The Ministry of Justice for the legal issues, Department for Levelling Up from a building regulation point of view, and the Department for Energy Security Net Zero. So they're all coming together to try and...
You got a few involved in this.
There's lots of people involved, and that's notwithstanding the investigations taking place by the Solicitors Regulation Authority, Financial Conduct Authority, Financial Ombudsman, Legal Ombudsman. Yeah. There's lots of moving parts. That's why I sent the checklist out and asked people to return it to me, because I'm building up a picture so I know exactly what help different people need. Because everyone's at a different point in this.
Yeah, maybe that's what John's referring to. So John comes back saying he's received the pack, but it's like Chinese to fill it out. So I presume he's found it a little bit difficult. Maybe that's the...
John, if it's helpful, give my office a call. My number's on the bottom of the letter I sent you. We're happy to help go through it and answer and fill it all in. It's just helping me build that picture so that when I have those conversations with ministers, I know exactly where the issues are, who's got legal bills, who's still got defective cavity wall insulation. And that's why we need all the government departments. You know, if everyone turned around and said the defective cavity wall insulation is gone and now it's just the legal bills, well, actually that means we can knock a whole government department out of it and just focus on the one issue. I suspect that's not the case for everything I've got back, but that's why I'm doing it. So that's a long way of saying I'm still doing as much as I possibly can, but if you're watching this and you've had the pack and you've not sent the checklist back, please do. And if you need help with it, give my office a call, 01282 969 377. I feel like one of those
That's a good memory, that.
presenters.
Can you repeat it?
01282 969 377. I wish I could put it on the bottom of the screen. Just as I say it, the numbers appear. But give my office a call. We're happy to help people fill it in. On the 14th of May, sadly, I'm away with the Business and Trade Select Committee that I sit on next week, just for a couple of days. So I'm not going to be in Parliament for it. But I've asked some other MPs that if they go along and anyone from Burnley's there, please say hello. So look out for people like Sarah Brickliffe, just in case she's there.
Yeah, I think weren't you the first MP to actually raise it?
First MP to raise it in the House of Commons when I did it at Business Questions. And actually that's really good because it means all the ministers know who I am, what I'm interested in, and it means we're all kind of pushing in that same direction.
Yeah, okay, cool. I promised Roger I'd go back to his question, Anthony. Roger's question, I won't spend too long on this because you could really get into a long conversation. Would you bring back Boris, or would it put you further behind in the polls?
You're right. I mean, I could probably write an essay on that.
That's what I'm saying.
Boris is a friend, and I owe so much to him. And I spoke about this at the time of the leadership election. I wouldn't bring him back at this point in time, right? I mean, we've got an election within a couple of months, and I think what the country needs more than anything is as politicians to knuckle down and stop being so fixated on personalities and who's who. You know, this isn't a game of who's who, like a board game. What we do in Parliament and what the government does is really serious business. I wouldn't count Boris down and out, and I hope to see him up campaigning for me. But opinion is mixed for him, right? I still count him as a friend, but I know that for some people he's Marmite. So I don't see any prospect of him coming back in the immediate term. Nor do I think it would be good for the country. I think the country has moved on from that period, and crack on.
Yeah. Sandra thanks you for visiting her home for a start, and you've kind of answered a question about the local election with Andrew Snowden. So I'll just move on to another topic.
Well, let me just say, Sandra, it was lovely to visit you. One of the most difficult things in this job is you want to go and visit, or I want to go and visit every single resident's house. I want to sit down in their living room with a cup of tea and have a conversation. And with the best will in the world and an infinite supply of trainers to pound the streets, I just can't do all of it. That's why I do stuff like this Facebook Live, because it's as close as I can get to, I would say one-on-one. I can't quite see the number in the corner, but say 1 on 40, 1 on 50. But you can ask me questions and I answer back, like a virtual town hall. But if I could get to everyone's house, I would. So if I've not knocked on your door yet, it's not because I don't want to. It's not because I'm not trying. It's just because there's close to 50,000 houses, and I got to spend some time down in London doing the Parliament stuff.
Yeah, doing the Parliament stuff. So a number of people have raised this topic. It's something you will have heard before, and with Martin's just mentioned it as well. What is going on? Completion date, Town to Turf. What's happening with it? Just to add into before you answer this, there is also Suki who's mentioning the frustration about the roadworks and how is it levelling up. So tied into one.
So I had an inkling suspicion this was going to come up. So I printed off my latest update on Town to Turf. Look, of course it's frustrating that it is taking this amount of time. In fact, I had a conversation with someone literally a couple of hours ago when I was just out and about talking about it. Incredibly frustrating that it's taking so long. I do think when it's done, we'll look at it and go, this is really good. It helps improve the town. It makes it more attractive to people as they're coming in, and all of that great stuff. And it gives us some more flexibility because there's more open spaces. We had Burnley Live the weekend just gone.
Yep.
Incredibly popular, really good for our hospitality businesses. Town to Turf will help us expand some of that, especially to places like the Royal Dyche, bring them further into that town centre mix, of which I would say they already are. But they're a little bit out of the town centre, and because it's not been the easiest to get to and from them.
Yeah, because am I right in saying with Turf to Town, there's been a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, why switch a roundabout for a junction?" But is it not that there's so much more pedestrian access, trees, and it'll look nice to walk across?
Yeah, huge amounts of pedestrian access, much more open space, and we spend a lot of time both in Parliament and when I'm speaking to police talking about safety and security, particularly violence against women and girls. You won't find many young women who go out in Burnley who thought that underground subway to cross the road was safe. Yeah. And if we know that's a big barrier to people feeling safe, then we need to do something to address it. And this will do it. But what's the update? What are the timelines? So, 95% complete on the Harry Potter's Way section. They've just got to do the road markings, which will be done this month, subject to weather. So we'll see all the final road markings. They're done. On the Yorkshire Street to the east of Centenary Way, so as you're coming down past Tesco, at the now mini roundabout that will become the junction when you turn right. So that section that's currently one way, that's going to remain one way just for a little bit longer whilst they do some of the work, but they're hoping that will be completed by early June. So we're only talking a month, 6 weeks off.
To go back to
being two-way.
Okay.
And paving on all of that section is about 75% complete. And then they have said they are still on track, which means it should all be done and dusted for the start of summer. That includes the signalling or the traffic lights going in and stuff basically being removed so we can start to use the space. Now, there has been some big issues for some of the businesses there. I know that some of the businesses, be it J Care or I think it's Emma's Lounge, the hairdresser, they've really struggled.
Yeah.
And my plea to anyone watching is please continue to support those businesses. I've got a meeting down there tomorrow with the team doing the Town to Turf stuff to just look through how they've tried to accommodate businesses. Because I don't think the businesses have been that well supported. I don't think communication has been great. But if you've got any messages for the Town to Turf construction team, other than please do it faster, drop me a message on Facebook or a comment in this, because I'm very happy to ask, if there's questions about what's going on and stuff like that, I'm happy to ask them the questions and put it back in the comments.
Yeah.
But rest assured, my question and point to them will be, please do it faster. And I will put back in the comments tomorrow what their response when I say please do it faster.
Talking about doing it faster, the other topic that kind of links nicely into this, which people have been talking about, you see this all across Facebook, potholes.
Yeah.
So the roadworks at Town to Turf, but then everywhere else, issues with the road surfaces. What do you know?
So I don't think there's a Facebook Live goes by that potholes, road surfaces, Town to Turf doesn't come up, and probably rightly so. Right, politics is about making everyone's life better, including the things that are just really irritating all the time. And potholes and road maintenance are just really annoying. Not to mention the fact that every couple of weeks I meet someone who has had to fix their suspension or something like that with their car because of the potholes. So, I think I've said before, we got Lancashire County Council another £250 million for road maintenance and potholes. They're working through all their normal timetabling for it. They've reported on some of the additional stuff they're going to do, but that makes up a small proportion of the budget. They've not yet reported on the whole budget. I'm going to keep flagging every single road that needs doing to them, because that's my job, right? Their job is to actually spend the money and actually do the roads. And I've given them my suggestions about how we can do some of that a bit more efficiently with new machinery. As most guys will appreciate, it's sometimes quite nice watching JCB videos of the newest excavators and road maintenance things. That's maybe that's a me thing. I thought it was a boy thing. But there's all kinds of stuff like that, right? That you can do pothole repair more efficiently, more quickly if you do some of the capital expenditure. Buy some new equipment, and that's the kind of stuff I'm encouraging Lancashire County Council to do, and I'll keep doing it. I know they've got a tough job with tens of thousands of miles of highways across the whole county, and wet weather and heavier cars because of batteries, and I know all of that, as I'm sure everyone watching this does. But when you've had all those arguments, at the end of the day, what everyone just wants to see is a better road surface for their cars, for their commute. And we shouldn't forget, better road surfaces mean smoother traffic flow, which means quicker, more efficient, more economically productive. So it's a win-win-win. A point I will continue to make to the county council, to government, and to everyone else I need to make sure we fill in these potholes.
Thanks for that, Anthony. A quick point from Kay, just a comment. You won't get my vote should Boris make a return, so you've got one person who is against that previous question. So,
well, as I said, it's I mean, I can't see it happening at all.
Ben speaks about something that I actually remember back now. I think 4 years now. One of the first contributions you made in Parliament was about train services to Manchester. Do you remember? So Ben's a commuter. He must work over in Manchester or somewhere, and he's asking about more frequent train services to Manchester. It'd majorly help him out, especially given that cancellations are commonplace.
100%. Ben, I agree with you 100%. Jamie's right. This was I think it was probably the first question I asked in transport questions in the House of Commons was about the frequency of services from Burnley into Manchester. For exactly the reason you highlight, right? If you miss the 7 a.m. service, but you need to be in work for 8:30, or that 7 a.m. service is canned, or whatever time it is. If you miss it, you're shot for the day, right? You're going to be over an hour late for work. You're going to miss your meeting, miss your appointment, whatever it is. It's so detrimental when the service frequency is as low as it is, and the reliability is as low as it is. The problem historically hasn't been the tracks or anything like that, it's the congestion inside Manchester. So the big problem Manchester's got, obviously it's got multiple stations going into it, Piccadilly, Oxford Street, Victoria. Its big challenge is congestion going in and its signalling system, which couldn't handle more trains than it currently does. So a big part of the funding announced as part of Network North, which you'll hopefully have seen, that's the cancellation of HS2, repurposing the money for localised transport things. So a big chunk of what's going to Manchester is to help renovate, upgrade the signalling system, reduce the congestion, allow more trains to run in and out. And I'm going to keep pushing Northern Rail and the Department for Transport so that when some of that capacity opens up, we put it onto the line that connects Lancashire into Manchester. Because that's not just good for Burnley. I mean, obviously I'm massively interested in what's good for Burnley, but it helps across the whole corridor as well, including traffic both ways. I mean, I want to be able to see people who live in Manchester come to Burnley for some things, because we've got Burnley Live and we've got brilliant parks and stuff like that. So we should be encouraging that two-way traffic, and that obviously also goes for football. Right? If we get that, then you can come into Piccadilly, jump over to Victoria and come down and get back, because it's every 30 minutes, not every hour.
Yeah. Debbie were on last time, she says. Hiya, Debbie. She says she watched the live, she asked about mental health support, and she's referencing the M65 bridge and some of the incidents that we've seen there. Did you speak to LCC, is the question Debbie's asked.
Yeah, I mean, I keep talking to, not just Lancashire County Council, but highways, National Highways, which is the replacement body for Highways England. I actually saw the Samaritans, albeit at Burnley Manchester Road Station last month, if not a couple of weeks before that, to talk about some of the things we can do. There's no, I wish I could tell you, Debbie, that there's a silver bullet, but there's not, because you close one route off and people will, people in that state will find another route. And so that's why the best thing we can do is find more ways of getting the right support to people, make sure that when they're in that crisis moment, there's someone to talk to. So signs and banners from the Samaritans are actually a really effective tool, because it's all you need is for someone to have that click of a moment to go, actually, I'll make that call to the Samaritans, or actually, I'll call that friend. But I'll keep raising it, Debbie, with Lancashire County Council, so that if there is more that we can do that will have a properly beneficial impact, I want to see it done. And actually, no one doesn't want to see this, these sorts of things improved and tackled. It's just making sure that we do it in the right way, and we don't, by closing one thing down, we push things into areas where we can't see what's happening.
This is one that came in before we started this live, but Andrew's asking about an ongoing pollution incident that's taking place in Lower House. He's saying he can't post the video. There's foam there, 2 meters there. I don't know. People will have seen this already. Yeah.
Well, if people haven't, I've seen it, and I've gone to the Environment Agency about it already, and I've asked them to look into it urgently and come back to me. So I don't have an update on it right now about what's caused it, or how it's going to be tackled, or who's responsible for it. But I've sent it to the EA. I've asked for it to be looked at quite urgently. Literally within minutes of it coming to me, I'd gone to the Environment Agency. So I guess my plea with all things like this is, if you see something and you don't know where to send it to, drop me an email, drop me a message on Facebook, include a video, include a picture, and say, this is what we've seen, can you help? Because I'm relying on people feeding these things into me. So hopefully, it gets resolved pretty quickly. But I'll wait for the Environment Agency to give me a bit more information.
Okay, cool. Leon also asks about illegal immigration.
Yeah.
And he's saying, how many is housed in Burnley and Padiham since you took office? And I think from the comments underneath, it's talking about hotels.
Oh, right, okay. Well, Leon, I suspect from the question we're on the same side of this, that I think it's... Okay, I don't think it is totally unacceptable. One, that people who come here illegally are being housed in hotels and stuff is why I'm a big supporter of the Rwanda legislation, because I think if you come here illegally, you shouldn't be allowed to stay. I voted for that. You know, it was a change in the law to stay. If you enter the UK illegally, you shouldn't be allowed to stay. The Labour Party opposed it, the Lib Dems opposed it, the Green opposed it, the Scottish Nationals opposed it, but I supported it, as did a majority of Conservative MPs. So it is now the case that if you enter illegally, you're not entitled to remain. Rwanda is about then having somewhere we can send people if they can't be sent home. In terms of Burnley, so we have never had they're called dispersal hotels, yeah. A hotel that the Home Office used to send asylum seekers, illegal asylum seekers, people who have entered the UK illegally, send them to. We've never had a dispersal hotel. We still don't have a dispersal hotel, and you can rest assured, if any plans come for there to be a dispersal hotel in Burnley or Padiham or anywhere in our borough, I will be the first person to be going back to the Home Office to say absolutely not. Obviously, there are asylum seekers living in Burnley in some of the houses. It's something I continue to raise with Home Office ministers, because I'm not yet convinced that they understand the community cohesion aspects of doing some of that. And I'm going to keep lobbying to make sure that, yes, okay, we can take our fair share whilst people are pending removal, but so should every other part of the country.
Okay, you actually wrote an article in the Burnley Express about the changes that are being discussed about universal credit. So Steve's question here is, he's talking about the proposed welfare reform, people on PIP, the PIP thing, and he's saying, do you support this particular policy? And I think Steve's coming at it from the perception that it's a bad thing because those with depression and anxiety could have the payments stopped. So what's your take on this? Where do you kind of covered it in the Express article, but sum it up if you will.
Look, I think there are people with disabilities and health issues that we would all look at and go, of course you can't work, and it's right that we help and support and allow those people to just get better. But I do have a concern, I'm going to be really honest about it. I do have a concern that the number of people out of work for health-related reasons is increasing dramatically. It's expected to be 50% higher in just a couple of years. Now, that's not because people are getting more unhealthy. It's because our tolerance is getting lower, and that's coming at the same time that people can work from home. Or, you think of someone who is anxious maybe about leaving the house. Well, now they can work from home and we can support them to do that. And that's how you support them with their mental health, with making sure they're not socially isolated, that they've got that sense of independence and freedom. And I am in favour of any change that help people get that economic freedom, the social aspect of being in work. I think that is a really good thing. And in fact, I think it is wrong for society to essentially condone people being out of communities and societies and staying in the home because they might have some of those conditions. So if someone can work, I think they ought to. That's fair to them, it's fair to taxpayers, it's fair to our businesses, because none of this is paid for out of free money, right? It's the people who are going out and working and paying into their taxes that are doing it. And that doesn't mean that we're not compassionate. In fact, I would say the most compassionate thing we can do is to make sure that we help people remain in the workplace or get back to work. Now, we've just launched a service called Work Well. It's a combination of the Department for Work and Pensions, so the ones that pay out the benefits, alongside the Department for Health. So they're going to be working with it's called our Integrated Care Board. It's like the local NHS. Work Well is about helping those people who might be about to fall out of the workplace because they might be suffering with some of those things, and going, right, okay, what extra support could we put in place? because I'd much rather work with people who might have the conditions that you've spoken about. I'd much rather work with them to keep them in work or get them back in work to help build their life back up than just say, okay, well, it's easier for us just to say you can stay at home now.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that's a compassionate thing to do.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Steve. There is a Bolero's restaurant are on the live. They're saying hello. They're talking about an issue that's same with Mick. So Triple Mick is saying, you mentioned last time about policing.
Yeah.
Pendle, where there seems to be an issue of cars being broken into.
Okay.
There's pictures of these people who are doing it, and where's the police? And then Bolero's are saying, last time you spoke, you were going to come and see them. Is anything going to get sorted with the issues they've been at? Because they've had break-ins, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And, it was good to meet when I was down at Tesco in Padiham. I'll follow up with you directly about the conversations with the police and stuff. I'm keen to make sure we keep doing that. On the Pendle Way issue, let me take that away and raise with the police at my next one-to-one meeting with them, because I hadn't appreciated that yet. So I just want to make sure that, one, the police are in, then I can get some updates from them on what they're doing to tackle it.
Yeah. Martin asks a question. Would you support and champion moving the base taxation level from 12 to 20,000 to allow pensioners to stop being taxed on their private pensions and move the lower paid off tax credits?
Yes. I agree with, I want to see people keep more of the money that they earn. I raised tax thresholds just this week with the government, because I think it's, we've done a lot on national insurance and I think that's a good thing, but we know that there are pensioners out there who, because of a mix of the state pension and their private pension, they've done the right thing, they've saved into a private pension as well, they're now brought into the tax system where they weren't otherwise there. Rest assured, that's a message that me and other members of Parliament have taken forward.
On the issue of frequency of trains, Ben just comes back to say thanks for the answer. The investment in the Tomlin curve were really good.
Yeah, it was.
It would be great if it were to improve.
100%, and that's why we're doing the bridge over the two platforms as well, right? There's no point us doing that massive investment to put a bridge over the two platforms, which again is about accessibility. And I know people say, well, it's already accessible. It is, apart from if you speak to people in a wheelchair. The steepness of some of those slopes, particularly when you're coming down the main road, is actually really difficult to manage. So, yes, okay, it's accessible, but if you speak to people who need accessibility changes, it's not. And the point is, if we want increased frequency and we want the Todmorden curve, and we want people to use it, we've got to do all of these things. We need more frequency, we need it to be more accessible, we need it to be welcoming, we need the routes to be there, we need the trains to be decent. It all comes together, and we need it to be accessible for people in the town centre.
Yeah. Debbie also agrees with you on this stuff you were talking about with mental health. She does say that crisis support is poor in this area, though, just something to take away.
I'll take that away, thanks, Debbie.
James asked whether you managed to speak with Paul Maynard regarding cavity insulation claims. I think that was from last time. But you kind of touched on the SSB stuff that...
Let me go away and just double check that I sent everything to Paul. I'll go away and double check.
Okay. Then you've got Gemma. I'm not wanting to go into huge detail or a debate on it, but can I ask if you've been made aware of James Anderson at DEFA and the catalogue of complaints made to Burnley Borough Council, other authorities, and the impending investigation due to air on BBC News?
No, is the honest answer.
Yeah.
If there's anything anyone thinks I can do, please send it to me. Sounds like if there's concerns there, they've been made to the right people. But no, it's not something I'm aware of at the minute. But happy to help if anyone wants to bring anything to me anonymously. Yeah,
I never knew about that. And BBC investigation as well. John is asking, are there any plans to build a new Aldi near the Nissan garage on Westgate? That'd be pretty close to the Aldi that's already around there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I didn't think so. Because we've got the new supermarket being built where the old Real Cinema was.
Yeah.
I don't know what the timetable for that is, but that's why you can see road layout changes up there. because there's a supermarket going where the real cinema was. I will have to go away. I'll go away and I'll come back in the comments. I'll just check the planning system and stuff like that.
Yeah, this one's quite apt actually, by Victoria, who mentions about what is happening with Blackburn A&E. People are still waiting in corridors, etc. But you've been today, right?
Yes. So after the last Facebook, so anyone who watched the last Facebook Live, and probably the one before that, will know that this is something I've continued to raise, because I think residents deserve the best healthcare service. And Blackburn Hospital and the NHS staff there and Burnley Hospital do brilliant work where they can, but it is abundantly clear that the emergency department is too pressured. There are too many patients in there for the current setup. So I've been speaking to the NHS Trust about it, to the Integrated Care Board and to government to see what more we can do. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I coordinated, so I wrote a letter and I got other East Lancashire MPs to sign it, basically asking to meet the government to discuss this situation. I then also raised it in the House of Commons, probably around the same time as the last Facebook Live, maybe a couple of days after or a couple of days before. And I asked the Minister if she would come and visit Royal Blackburn. And she's been today. So earlier today, this afternoon, I was at Royal Blackburn Hospital myself. Sarah Brickliffe, the MP for Hyndburn, was there. Kate Holland, the Member of Parliament for Blackburn, was there. The NHS Chief Executive for East Lancashire Hospitals, the Integrated Care Board, the Director of Nursing, and the Government Minister responsible for A&E provision. We went there, we walked around the A&E so that she could see for herself what the current service provision was. We went and met some of the clinical flow teams to watch the patient journey and how the Trust tries to manage that. And there is some really good work going on as well. And I don't want people to think that it's all doom and gloom. It's not. The NHS in our part of the world performs really well on stuff like ambulance turnaround times, getting people in there. But she did see, some of the things that we all know are happening there. The incredible pressure the staff are under, and that's notwithstanding, it was really clear that the staff are going above and beyond to make improvements. In fact, from the last time I visited just a couple of weeks ago to this time, you could see a big difference. So that's really good. But there's more we need to do. So Minister came today because she wanted, and I was really keen that she saw for herself what the situation was like. And then later this month, not next week, it's the week after or the one after that, we've got a round table including members of Parliament from East Lancashire, the government, the NHS Trust, the Integrated Care Board, all coming together to just really go through the data and the performance to see what we can do to improve it. So, I just want everyone to be reassured this is not something that is not on my radar. If I said I was all over it, it sounds a bit flippant. I'm doing everything I possibly can. One, to see improvements at Royal Blackburn A&E, but also to make sure that we continue that investment at Burnley General Hospital, because I continue to believe that should be at the centre of our local healthcare.
I agree with that. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Victoria. We've got Georgina's asking whether we can discuss the statutory sick pay. So she gives an example. She works full time. If she's sick for a week, she gets £90-ish for a week, which is half a day in her job, she says. If she was claiming benefits, the money she would receive wouldn't be affected. It's like you get penalised for being in full-time work. I guess have you got any thoughts on that really? I know it's
that's a really good point. My starting point in all conversations like this is work should always pay. It should always pay more to be in work than out of it. And if there are specific examples of where that ends up not being the case because of the way the system works, then I'm really interested in looking at them and seeing what we can do. So let me take that away and raise that with ministers, because I think that's a really good point.
Okay, thank you. Kath, what are you going to do for disabled people and their carers? Kath's going into the argument that carers are basically not paid enough, and they pay a pittance, and they save the government thousands of pounds every year.
So, I mean, what are we doing for disabled people? We've got a whole disabled people strategy now that's about helping those who are disabled into work, stay in work, helping them with transport and, travel and all of that, making sure that the opportunity, whether, whatever your disability, the opportunities that are available to everyone else are also available to you. I think that's the first and foremost, that is my underlying belief on all of this, that whether you've got a physical or non-physical disability, you shouldn't be at an advantage. We should do everything we possibly can to make sure that it's a level playing field. That's why we've made sure that disability benefits have been uprated by 8.5%, which is a significant uplift. That includes carers allowance and things like that. On the care sector generally, I'm not sure whether you're talking paid carers or like family relatives who are caring. If we're talking about social care, so the people employed to go and care for our loved ones, then there's a whole range of work out there to try and professionalise the workforce and recognise that the work they do is amazing. And for too long they've kind of been in the shadows and not, the role hasn't been well understood. And actually I visited a new care agency or a new care company established in Brighfield called Visiting Angels. It's just started up and they've got a totally different ethos. It puts carers and those they care for at the centre of everything, and that to me is the future model. You should always ask yourself, what would I want for my mum or my grandma or my sister or something like that. So, Kathy, if your question is, do we need to do more to make sure carers, those in the care profession, feel like we respect them as much as we do and we ought to, then yeah, we need to keep pushing to do more.
Georgina comes back saying, thank you for your answer. She will be in touch with you about this. She says that her dad actually lives down south, is an activist, close with Damien Hands.
Oh, right.
Irene asks about, I've skipped Kirsty. It's again on this disability issue.
Yeah.
What can we do to get the police to treat disability hate crime as serious as racial hate crime? It's Kirsty's question to you.
So I'd have to go away and look at the law. Obviously, there are specific laws in place about race discrimination and hate crimes. I'd have to go away and look at what the law said on it. Ultimately, the police's job is to enforce the law as set by Parliament, and I'm not keen on asking them to become a separate arm of the state making requirements. And it's why I'm not keen on this non-crime hate incidents. I think it's asking the police to do too much. But let me go away and look at what the law is, and I'll pop it in the comments.
Okay, Irene asked you about a topic we've spoken about plenty of times, which is the Greenway Bridge in Padiham. Yeah. She's just asking, has any decision been made about the repairs or the progress as of yet?
Not yet, Irene. I asked for an update just a couple of weeks ago on it. I've not had one back yet. As soon as I do, I will update everyone. It's getting frustrating. I get that. It's been years and years now since it closed. I'd love to see something reopen, even if it's not the main bridge, the footbridge. We've got this additional money for Lancashire County Council for transport-related projects, of which I would say the Greenway Bridge is a piece of transport infrastructure. So once they've told me the issue and what the bill is, I'm happy to then work with Sustrans who own it on, what proportion should they pay? Do I need to go and lobby government or Lancashire County Council for another part? But we can only do that when they've come and said, this is what the problem is. And we're not quite there yet. I think they're still working through some of the potential legal issues for them. Yeah.
Chris makes a quick point. It would be great to reverse the Labour's decision to move the A&E from Burnley to Blackburn. Is this realistic or pure fantasy? I think you've touched on this a fair few times now, Anthony.
Yeah.
If it could happen, you would.
I would love to do it. It would be... look, right, we all get the politics of it is it would be brilliant. the real world impact would also be very good, right? Let's make no bones about it. It would improve healthcare provision, but it is fiendishly complex and expensive, and it's why I've never promised that I can do it, because in every conversation I have with government and the NHS and the Integrated Care Board, it's clear that that's not something that's feasible at the minute because of everything that comes with having an A&E. It's not just the front of house unit, it's not just having a resuscitation unit with it. You've got to have your intensive care unit, you've got to have your wards you hand off to. It is a very expensive, very difficult thing to run, is an A&E. And so I get why the NHS is nervous about it. I'm going to keep asking the question. You know, there's probably not a meeting where the NHS goes by. I mentioned to the Minister earlier on when we were at Royal Blackburn, we were talking about, you know, how you get from an urgent care up to an A&E, including whether there is a stage in the middle that we can say, right, okay, let's get to that bit, because that will help relieve pressure on Royal Blackburn. So all those things I'm going to keep exploring and pushing for and doing what I can. But in the interim period, you know, and I'm always at pains to say this, what I won't allow us to do is to say, well, we want the A&E back and that's our holy grail, so that's all I'm going to push for. So you're going to, you know, expect to see me keep pushing for other things in the meantime, right? A new radiology unit, because I think that'd be really good for Burnley, a whole new set of diagnostic equipment and stuff like that. So we're going to keep pushing along the way, but I'm also going to keep raising it, but I can't promise it.
Okay, cheers. Gaz asks, what about a permanent street closure on Ormerod Street? You touched on Burnley Live.
Yeah.
He's saying he's happy to meet up and discuss it with you if you're interested.
Yeah. Let's meet up and chat about it. You know, Burnley Town Centre has got so much going for it, and it continues to go from strength to strength. And we want to look at ways that we, invigorate our evening economy and our nighttime economy. And they are two different things, right? Your evening economy is for your adults, if I can put them that, probably people my age who are looking for that late night couple of drinks and meal, but then you want the nighttime economy for some of your younger people, it pains me to say. So Gaz,
not that old.
Gaz, happy to have a chat to see what's possible, what the benefits, the pros, the cons, and all of that. Ultimately, the decision will end up sitting with Burnley Borough Council and Lancashire County Council, but happy to be of help if I can be.
Well, Madge comes in at this on the same topic. He's actually referencing something that we as a Conservative group actually put forward in last year's budget, saying, would we be able to have a meeting about getting some funding for Burnley Live next year? Now, you remember the budget that went to Burnley Borough Council last year. I have to say this as a councillor, all cards on the table, but we put a £10,000 budget for Burnley Live for a music festival in Burnley, and it was voted down at the council. And it's not because of lack of funds either. There was 750 grand sat in the bank.
Yeah, and part of the role of any local authority is to help spur other things on. So I talk about, you know, sometimes the £20 million we've got from government as part of it's called a long-term plan for towns. It's to help invigorate, regenerate, and all that for Burnley Town Centre. But we should never think of it as it's just 20 million. What can that 20 million bring from other parties? And, you know, Madge, Gaz, you're exactly right with this kind of thing. An investment from Burnley Council, using some of the money it gets from business rates and stuff like that, to help put something on in the town centre, helps the whole local economy grow. And as you know, as we're doing things like Pioneer Place and Town to Turf, that should be exactly the kind of thing we're talking about. Speaking to residents to go, what is it you want to see in Burnley Town Centre? And you can look across East Lancashire and the wider Lancashire and see some brilliant examples of that. You know, in Accrington, they do a soapbox derby where families get together and make soapboxes, you know, like the homemade cars, and they race through the town and it brings the crowd out and all the businesses do really well. In Colne, they had the Rhythm and Blues Festival. And we want Burnley Live to be on that kind of scale, but we want it to be there with lots of other things that help drive people into the town centre. As, you know, I think great things like the artisan markets do already, but that's one thing, and we should have much more of them. That's how you create a dynamic, attractive, entrepreneurial town centre, and that's ultimately how you grow all the economy. So happy to sit down and chat about all those things.
I think we've got time for a couple more questions. There's 5 minutes left of this.
Okay.
Of this
I'll
live.
try and do these quick fire.
Yeah. So John's asking what's happening with bags. Pipping his own, goading the police, can't chase them, these e-bags and off-road bags.
Yeah, so the police need to be robust, and they've got to do things within their protocols and directions given to them by the National Police Chief Council and all of that. But I've been very clear with all the police officers I've met, if they tell me that there is a gap in the law and they need the law closing to allow them to do more, tell me, and I shall be going and knocking on the Home Secretary's door, because I fear that some of the people on these bikes now know what the police will and won't do. Yeah. And so if the police need some extra powers to allow them to close that gap, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Diane brings up something which you've been speaking about already. You've raised this in Parliament actually, which is, can we please look at adding an exit entry for the M65 at Asda, Junction 11, M65? It would stop so much traffic going through the town and just straight onto the motorway.
100%. I agree with that entirely.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes, I've raised it in Parliament. In fact, the last town board we had, which includes a Lancashire County Council representative, the Cabinet Member for Economic Growth, we went down to the bottom, to the roundabout, and I showed him exactly where I was talking about. And then obviously he had to leave Burnley going through all the traffic. So I'm pretty confident he knew exactly what I was talking about and why I was saying it was a big deal. Look, it's a really long-term project, something like that. We've got to do feasibility study to make sure it's possible, or to see if it is possible. Then you need to go through the engineering. If it is possible, you've got to acquire the land. So it's a long-term thing, but I'm going to keep banging on about it, because I think it would, as that side of town is growing with things like Pioneer Place, the college is expanding, UCLan's got Newtown Mill, all that good work is happening. Let's just free up some of the town centre and allow multiple points of entry and exit.
Emma talks about VSMS, market and events. She's waiting for a response off you. She says,
I think I know this. Yeah,
a market.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you.
Yeah, just on that one. Phil talks about a planning application. It's given a planning application reference, but from that reference, no idea. I think that's probably one that's, Phil, you're probably best to email Antony about that.
Yeah, drop me an email, Phil. That'd be really. I will look it up afterwards, but drop me an email with any comments or anything you want me to be aware of.
And then on a national level, someone actually asked this before, but two people have come in with this. What do you think of the defection of the Conservative MP for Dover this week? And then Simon jumped in saying, are you jumping ship? So, what's your thoughts on that, Antony?
How do I put this diplomatically? I thought it was shameless and opportunistic, and I think it is pretty terrible for politics in general if your politicians can say to you at one point in time, elect me as a Conservative, and then at another point in time, they themselves jump ship, give no thought to the electorate and say, I'm now Labour. Right? That is a 180 degree about turn. I have no track with it. I think, Natalie Elphick is the one who has to look her constituents in the eyes and explain to them why she thinks their vote didn't count. And I think it says a lot about the Labour Party. If I said beforehand I don't really know what the Labour Party stands for, now it's kind of amplified. Natalie herself has criticised the Labour Party quite extensively. So now I'm not sure if Natalie agrees with the Labour Party or the Labour Party agree with Natalie. But one of those two things has to be true. And it was I saw on BBC News today, a member of Labour's kind of ruling committee, their National Executive Committee, said that the Labour Party now feels grubby. And I would agree with them. They seem to be made up of a group of misfits, including including members of Parliament who feel like they should have been promoted whilst in the Conservative Party into government, weren't, and have now jumped ship. And, you know, as
It's not really conviction politics, is it?
No, look, people can agree or disagree with me. I'm really open and honest about what my views are, and I think that's the way politics should be. People should answer questions like this and tell people what they think. And if politicians get into the habit of saying, "Well, my convictions are these until they're other ones," then I'm not sure how the electorate deals with that. I want everyone watching this to know if you ask me a question, I'll give you an honest answer, and I'm going to stick to my views. That's not to say you can't be persuaded and you can't change your mind. You can. But I think to go full 180 degrees is pretty disrespectful to the electorate. I'd have had more respect if she'd said she's fallen out of love with the Conservative Party, she can't stand for them again and she's going to stand down at the election. I think that would have been the decent and respectful thing to do for the electorate.
Yeah.
But am I jumping ship? I mean, I think my answer probably gives you all you need to know. Absolutely not. Right? I was elected as a Conservative MP, your Conservative MP, and I'm going to continue with that because I believe in freedom of the individual and community and society and free markets. I believe in all those things. I believe in secure borders and a strong economy to pay for strong public services. And if I agree with all of those things, then I'm in the Conservative Party, and I shouldn't change that. Or people shouldn't expect their MPs to change that on a whim.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Anthony, thanks for that. It is just past 8 o'clock. I think it's over, if you will. The number of people saying thanks, and there's more questions. There's more questions coming in now. Big questions about landlords and post office. But one question to finish it off from Diane: are you running any more coach trips to Parliament?
So I love putting on these coach trips. We've just got to be mindful of elections and whatnot. We had the local elections, so we didn't want to do anything too close to that. So the plan is to hold another one before the summer. If anyone watching is interested, just for those who have never heard about this, so I do all the logistics. I book a coach. My brilliant small team help me running it. So it goes from Burnley at about 7 o'clock in the morning, goes straight to London. There's some free time to explore some of central London, come and watch the House of Commons if we're sitting, do all of that. Then I give, with the rest of my team, a tour of the Houses of Parliament. Depends whether the chambers are sitting, whether we go onto the floor of the House. Sometimes we have to leave it a little bit later just so we can get in. Sometimes we can get in the Lords, sometimes not. But you see all of the Houses of Parliament, a bit of central London. You get lunch while you're there. And then we're back on the coach for about 6:30 and back in Burnley for about midnight. So it's a long day, but it's brilliant. And all I ask for is a contribution towards the cost of the coach. And I don't make any money from it. The tour of Parliament is free. The only charge is basically the number of people coming, the cost of the coach divided by the number of people coming. That's it. So it normally works out about £45. So yes, the plan is to run one again. We're just trying to get some decent quotes from the coach companies because I always want to make it as affordable as possible. So if you're watching this and you're interested, drop me an email or go on my website. There's a section on my website in the menu where you can register some interest, and when we've got a date, I'll reach out to everyone. But in the meantime, thanks very much for watching and joining Jamie and I. The next one is in 3 weeks, as always. So if I've not answered your question, or you didn't manage to ask it or anything like that, come back, join us in 3 weeks, and hopefully you can hear me. My hay fever has started, and hopefully I'm not as hay fevery as I'm feeling right now. But enjoy what I hope is the rest of the hot weather. See you later.